All right. In terms of marketing, I think that when you look at the wine industry, when you look at how much wine is out there, if you walk into a shop and you see the wine products on the shelves, there are so many different, or there are so many examples of really good products which are absolutely almost identical. If you take Sauvignon Blancs, you can find 10, 20, 30 different Sauvignon Blancs on any one shelf in any one shop at any one time, and somehow you have to be able to differentiate yourself away from those other wines, and that's really where the marketing comes in. Now, on a small farm like us, we just don't have the marketing ability that a lot of the bigger companies we have got. It's so expensive when you're trying to market a wine. One of the big things in the wine industry is we don't just sell our wines in South Africa; we sell them all over the world. So it's very, very difficult to put together your marketing. So we're always looking at different ways and unique ways of getting our name out there, our wines out there, the sales out there. So we're always trying to do something fairly unique. In our situation, we've come up with this strange idea of running around in kilts. It's a method that sort of works for us. It's something that we use. Again, by doing this, we're sort of taking that slightly serious side away from it. We're sort of putting a little bit more of the fun side back into it. And we find that wearing kilts and going out and doing wine shows in our kilts, people tend to remember us for our kilts. It's not just another wine and another wine show. Perhaps they'll come up to us and they'll talk to us about our kilts. They'll talk to us about Scotland. They'll talk something totally different. They'll be tasting the wines with us. We'll take them through the story of the wine. But afterwards, when they go into the shop and they see that particular wine on the shelf, they may not remember our wine because they had so many wines that night, but hopefully somewhere inside them something will spark that wine. They were those guys who were wearing those dresses or whatever you want to call it that night. I remember that was quite a nice wine. I think I'll buy that wine again. So that's really what we do. That doesn't mean to say that we don't take the quality of our wine very, very seriously. Our whole winemaking that side of it is taken very, very seriously. But we just find this sort of works for us. When we first start, or one of the first questions we always get asked is, what tartan is it that we're wearing? Well, it isn't a clan tartan. It doesn't belong to any particular clan. We have 4 partners in the business. Apart from myself, everybody else is either directly Scottish or first generation Scot. And so when we first mooted the idea of wearing kilts, we had so many different kilts to choose from that, so as not to upset any one person in particular, we decided to have a new tartan made. So we took our label down to a kilt maker and asked him to design a tartan for us. And so you'll see from our label the similarities in colours between the colours on the label and the colours on the kilt. So it's a tartan that's been designed for us. It's the only registered wine tartan in the world. It makes it just a nice sort of unique, different selling point, and it helps us just get out there in terms of marketing. I have this belief that I think most people are scared of wine. It's not the wine they're scared of, they're scared of they're going to say the wrong thing when they're talking about wine. So most people, when they come up to you and they want to start talking about wine, the first thing they say to you is, I know nothing about wine, but... And then they'll ask their question. The reason they say that, the reason they do that, is because when they make a fool of themselves and they say the wrong thing, they can say, I told you I knew nothing about wine, and that's wrong. We all know about wine. If you drink a glass of wine, if you like a glass of wine, you know as much as I do about wine. There's nothing more you need to know. Perhaps the only difference is I know how to make it, but otherwise we know exactly the same about wine, because all that's important about wine is what you like and whether you're going to drink it or not. And so we find that when we were going to shows, and I've been going to these shows for about 13 years now, most people, when they came into a room which was full of tables stacked with wine and people standing behind it, you were pretty much intimidated by what you saw. You weren't quite sure what you were going to do. And I found that standing behind a counter with my wines, just normally, I found I had between half a minute and 2 minutes perhaps with that client before I lost them. So they'd walk up to the counter, they'd ask to taste a particular wine on the table, and most people will step away and they'll go and taste the wine somewhere else because they're too scared to approach you about wine. They're too scared they're going to say the wrong thing. And we found that once we got dressed like this, once we put our kilts on and we pranced around looking like a bunch of girls in our kilts, it completely changed the whole thing. People tend to come up to us and they don't have to focus on the wines anymore. They've got an excuse to talk about something different. So the most asked question we get asked now when people come up to us at a wine show is, what are you wearing under your kilt? Which sounds like a really strange thing to say, but it's a brilliant opening line. So we'll make a joke of that. As we're making the joke, we're already pouring that first glass of wine for them, and we're able to go back into the wine, and tell them our story. And we find that our average time with someone now, is moved from half a minute to 10 minutes per person. And that way we can get them to buy into our wines and remember our wines. And perhaps it's a way of making us slightly different to the other wines. As I said earlier on, I think that all our wines in South Africa are absolutely brilliant. I think that the person who buys that wine is the person who's going to decide whether they like that wine. So whether it's a cheap bottle of what some of us would term plonk, or whether it's a really expensive bottle of some of the best wines in South Africa, it's up to the person who's bought that wine to decide whether they like it or not. And if they do like it, it's a good wine, and that's all that's important. So when you walk into a room that's full of wines, it's very difficult to remember all the wines you've tasted and to differentiate between so many of those wines. So this is just a way of doing that.